right, welcome to today's episode of Tomorrow's Leader, where we dive deep on all things leader related to leading yourself and leading others. I'm John Laurito, your host. Glad to be with you today. Have you ever yawned so big that you pulled a muscle in your jaw? I don't know if this ever happened to you, but this just happened to me. That hurt like a you-know-what. Holy cow. I almost couldn't. My jaw was almost stuck open. I don't know if that's lockjaw. It was literally a muscle right in the bottom of underneath my chin. And it just cramped up like a pulled hamstring. I didn't even know I had muscles under there. Anyways, that hurt a lot. Took a while for that thing I had to delay the podcast. So that's kind of crazy. I don't know if you had some kind of major presentation and whatnot. You're getting called out to the audience, called up to the stage, and you've yawned right beforehand for some reason. You've pulled a muscle. Like, what do you do? I'm just thinking, that has never been in my mind before going on stage to do a keynote presentation that, hey, you got to be careful. Maybe stretch some jaw muscles so you're not, pulling a muscle before you get up there. That's not even entered my mind, but maybe it needs to. I don't know. Now that I'm thinking about it, maybe that's part of my pre-game routine now. Huh? All right. Well, see, I learn things new every day. Okay. And I'm going to apologize ahead of time for coughing that I go through, any coughing fits. I'm not going to stop the recording. If I do, I do. I'm dealing with this every end of the May in North Carolina. I love this state. But this is horrendous allergy season, and mine tends to show up as a cough. It's asthma cough, and once I get going, I don't stop. And this is now take, I think, 4, because I've broken into these coughing fits, whatever. So if I do, or I pull a jaw muscle, I'm just going to keep going. If you hear me suddenly get silent, I pulled a jaw muscle. If you hear me just coughing nonstop, you know what that is. So just bear with me, and we'll get through it. This will be worthwhile, because I think this is going to be a great episode. And it ties into what I was just saying, actually, about speaking engagements. A question I get a lot of times is, how do you speak in front of big groups of people? How do you speak? How do you get up on a stage in front of thousands of people and command the attention of an audience that's that big? How do you keep people engaged for an hour and a half, or sometimes 2 hours, and not have people lose interest? And I'm going to give you the keys to this, and I really think this will help you. And I'm not speaking to you as a professional speaker if you want to become a professional. I'm speaking to anybody who wants to be better at public speaking. And as a leader, I don't care if you're a formal leader or an informal, your ability to speak in front of a group, and a group could be 2 or 3 people, with passion, conviction, and influence, and being able to attract people and attract attention and captivate people, that's a skill. You can learn how to do that. So I'm going to go through some of the things that I know contribute into this. Now, I'm also going to tell you some of the things not to do. I'm going to tell you very specifically what not to do. I've seen this a zillion different times. I've seen people. I had a good buddy of mine. We'll mention his name. He knows who I'm talking about. Years ago, was doing a best man speech, and he said, "Can I get some pointers from you?" I said, "Sure, no problem." I said, "Just do 2 things. I'll tell you a bunch of things to do. Just don't do 2 things. Do not do these 2 things. 1, do not take notes up there. It's a best man speech. Memorize it. Do whatever you got to do. Speak from the heart. Don't take notes. Don't read from cards. Secondly, no inside jokes. Nobody cares about your inside jokes. They don't understand it. You'd lose the audience." And what did he do? He did both of those. What the? Anyways, it was not one of the best man speeches I've seen, to put it lightly. Yeah, he knows who he is. But I love you, buddy. You know that. I love you. Anyways, so I'm going to tell you the things to do, and these are really keys. So here's a couple of things, and I remember seeing and we've all seen speakers and been part of experiences where we remember the person for years and years. One of the best speakers I've heard many, many, many great speakers, from Anthony Robbins, who just captivates an audience. I mean, wow, Tony Robbins is just on top of the highest level pinnacle of public speakers. Wow, what a guy can command an audience, keep people engaged for a long period of time. But not everybody's a Tony Robbins in terms of your energy, your animation, your storytelling, everything like that. So I'm going to give you some things you can actually implement. But I remember hearing a guy, he was actually a pilot for the Blue Angels, which is the aeronautics. You've heard me tell Blue Angel stories, and that's who I got them from. Great public speaker, great speaker, great professional speaker. I remember talking to him afterwards, and I'm like, how? I talked to our person in our company who had hired him, and they said he was $40,000 for that hour, which, if you know professional speakers, their ranges go from 10 grand all the way up to a couple $100,000 sometimes for a really, well-known famous figure. Sometimes even more. It's crazy. So I remember talking to this guy afterwards. I'm like, so how many of these things do you do? Now, here's the, financial side of me, math guy, and I'm doing the numbers. And he said, well, I do probably about 70 speaking engagements a year. Like 70. Wow. 40 grand a pop. That's like $3 million. Holy macaroni. So anyways, there's a lot of money, but realize that's a lot of impact. Think about how many audiences you're standing in front of. If you have a great message and you can really influence people in a positive way, you are really, there's no better place and way to do it than a stage in front of people. I can go on and on about my joys of keynote speaking. It is a thrill. I mean, it is a thrill. And most of you know it used to scare the shit out of me. Had panic attacks. Go back and listen to some of the early episodes where I talk about my panic attack that I had on stage one time. Absolutely horrible. But I've gotten over those. I've got past those. I love speaking in front of large groups. But I figured out along the way, what are the things that really draw an audience into you? And what are the things that really make your presentation, your words, impactful and long-lasting? And I used to hire speakers for my meetings that I put together a conference or meeting for my company. I wanted to hire speakers that added a lot of value. And I was looking for somebody who was entertaining and memorable and also impactful. Okay. I was looking for that type of person. So there's a very specific set of skills that help. I sound like Liam Neeson. Liam Neeson, is that his name? Liam Neeson, is that his name? Yeah. I have this big set of skill. Oh, geez, that's horrible. I can't even do it with my allergies. Anyways, I will do that another time. So in any event, here's the things that you have to do. And these are some small things that really make a big difference. One is, think before you go up there. You've got to have the think, feel, do. Okay. This is the planning stages where you're going to say is, what do I want this audience thinking after my presentation? How do I want them feeling? And what do I want them doing as a result of my presentation? As a result of what I'm saying, what do I want them thinking, feeling, doing? That itself will start to set the stage for you creating and saying the right things and creating the right messages. So that's point number one, the think, feel, do. I learned that years ago from Peter Velarde, great friend of mine, and that has served me extremely well. Okay, the second thing, now this is important. When you get up there, and by the way, before you even get up there, I mentioned this on an Instagram reel that I did recently, that I always visualize somebody, one person, a few people coming up to me afterwards saying great positive things. I always do this. Now it's second nature to me, but I always think about this, and I'm like, I did presentation, I remember, and I visualized a good buddy of mine, Michael Caine, coming up to me afterwards. It was really weird because this was a huge audience, 3,000 people, and I visualized him coming up to me afterwards and saying, "You crushed it, dude. Awesome job." And I walked off the stage, and in the back of the auditorium, he was there, and he gave me a big hug and said, "You crushed it, man." It was unbelievable, freaky. And I can't tell you that. I can tell you many, many times that has happened. The thing, I visualized somebody saying something and they said it. Bottom line is, what you start to think about impacts your performance, right? If I'm visioning that, it becomes this self-fulfilling prophecy. It puts me in the right mindset. Okay, I want to go out there on stage. I want to have fun. And I know I have fun when I'm confident, I really know my material, and when I have stories. Okay, stories. Stories make the difference. There's nothing worse than a presenter that's going through facts and figures and concepts, and there's no stories. I get bored. I get really, really bored. I want to hear stories. What I will tell you is that's the one thing that really helps make me stand out is through my whole presentation. I probably on an average keynote, I counted this one time. It was something like 25 different stories that I told or anecdotes. That's a lot for a 1 hour keynote. I mean, you think about that. That makes points more memorable. I mean, so think about the power of that. What I always do when I start a keynote is I start with a powerful story. I don't even say anything. I go right up and they introduce me. I walk up to the stage and I start telling a story. I don't say, hey, it's great to be here. I literally go right into the story. And that's a great way to catch everybody's attention, right? They're almost not expecting that. So I start with a story. Try that. Don't say, well, thank you, Mary, for bringing me. Thank you, Bill, for bringing me. It's a great, love this resort, blah, 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 blah. Just go right into the story. Catch people off guard. That's what I do. And if it's a powerful story, it should be a story that sets the stage for the point or the theme that you're going to have through your presentation. It should be a story that you can go back to and reference back to a couple times during your presentation. So think about your opening story has got to be, it's kind of like the introduction to the book. Well, I pick up a book, the first couple of literally the first 2 paragraphs, if they don't grab me, I'm going to put the book down. I'm going to move on to the next one. I have to get the first book. I put out videos recently. It's interesting on Instagram, and it tells you, the analytics of it tell you how long into the video people watch. You know the average person, how long they watched my video? 6 seconds. 6 seconds. I felt bad about that until I talked about other people. They're like, yeah, it's a 6-second rule. You don't know that? People watch 6 seconds and then they stop. There's a huge drop off. So unless your video or your presentation grabs people instantly, they just move on to the next thing. So that actually helped me. I'm like, okay, well, now I got to change my videos and everything like that. But bottom line is, you've got to start with a story. Start with a powerful story. Okay, that grabs people's attentions and they're thinking about it even after the presentation, but then use it to go back. It should make the point. Maybe it ties in with the title of your keynote or the presentation you have. Okay, its story can be short. It can be involving a personal situation. It can be involving something at work. It doesn't matter. There's no boundaries to it as long as it helps make the point or ties in with the theme of what you're going to be talking about. Okay, be creative. You can look online for different stories. You can make them up if you want to, but come up, borrow them from other people, whatever you want to do, but start with the story. That's a big. What I'll also say is end with the story. So if you think about, these are the bookmarks of your presentation. Start and end with a story. Your last point, your closing remarks should be tying a story down. Leave with the story. People remember what they started hearing and what they finished hearing. Those are the beginning and the end. Powerful. Both of them powerful. Really big, powerful stories. My 2 best ones, right at the beginning, right at the end. Okay. Aside from that, a couple of small things. Don't get fixated on slides. Don't make your presentation all about slides. People get distracted with that. Okay, I've seen great keynotes with 0 slides. I've seen some great ones with slides, but they don't get fixated on it. They use it to put up pictures or examples of stuff or some few points, but they don't get so bogged down because then the presentation becomes more about the slides than it does you. You are the essence of the presentation. Make it about that. You're delivering a message. You're not trying to draw people's attention away from you onto slides. I know people get scared and that's what they think. Hey, I'll feel better if I have people looking at slides instead of me. I get it. I've been there. But trust me, there's much better receptivity and people will feel better hearing your message, watching you than they will watching a screen. Okay. The other thing is make sure your eye contact is bouncing around. One, it relaxes you. If I'm fixated on one person, it makes me more tense, right? I'm now overly reading that person's body language or their facial expression, their nonverbal cues. Move your eyes gradually around the room. And what's amazing is it's just like if you're walking by a painting of a person, you feel as though the eyes are following you. If somebody in the audience, you ask them, I've had people say this, they're like, I thought you were looking just at me, right at me. I wasn't. I had no idea even where they were sitting. But because I move my eyes around, it makes it feel like I'm connecting one-on-one. So the best presenters are those that really connect with their audience. It's impossible for you to connect if you're not making eye contact, or I will say it's extremely difficult. So just bounce your eyes around the room, left to right to left. I also move around a lot. I'm not very good. I don't sit by a podium. I hate that. Okay, do your best to move around. Not too much, because then it will get distracting. And if you have these tics where you're kind of rocking back and forth, this is where a video camera can help you pick some of this stuff up. Practice in front of other people. Videotape your presentations. Just pick up on those unique tics that you say they're going to distract people from your message. They're going to start watching your tic. They're going to start listening to what you're saying. So if you have any of those things in your vocabulary, the uhs, the ohs, the ums that keep coming out, make sure you figure that out and be aware of it and work really hard to eliminate it, because I promise you nobody's going to want to listen to hear you and then start the tally of how many times you say and So we talked about that. Gesture. I'm a big believer in gesture. Now, the Italian in me, I can't not gesture. I can't not be animated. But I see people that are really not very animated, and it becomes very boring. So think about, just become free. Let your hands move naturally. Not unnaturally, but let them move naturally. Just be loose and don't feel like you've got to keep your hands in one spot. The same way, move your voice up and down. Add tonality. Change the volume. Change the pitch. Change when you're telling a story. Start to go a little quiet. Mostly you'll have a lavalier mic for some of the bigger presentations, so you can actually get really quiet. I heard one presenter started his meeting. He was a prisoner in war, and he started the meeting with his voice that was so low. It was down like this. But he was talking at this level right into the mic, and it was so clear. And it was relaxing. Boy, I sound like I'm doing a sleep meditation audio right now. Maybe I should do that. Close your eyes. Relax. Okay. All right, back. Never mind. Boy, maybe I should do that, huh? One episode? That was kind of fun. Unless you're driving. That wouldn't have been good. But, the bottom line is change your tonality and your pitch and your volume, everything, right? That grabs people's attention. Sometimes I've done this in different meetings, smaller groups. If people are not listening, I'll just stop talking. I won't even say anything. I'll just stand there. And it's amazing if they're watching their phones or whatever, they're doing something like that, that makes people uncomfortable, right? They all of a sudden look up, what just happened? What did I just miss? Okay, but speaking of the silent moment, there's such a powerful part of a presentation where you have the pregnant pause, or that silent moment, okay, where you say something and you let it sit. Okay, know how to use silence to your advantage. It really emphasizes a point. People need a minute to digest something, especially if it's a controversial point or a powerful point that you're making. Let it sit there. Don't just roll right past it and on to the next topic. It'll lose its essence. Last piece of feedback. Practice. That's the way you get great at this stuff. That's the way how you get comfortable with this stuff. Those are the keys. I mean, it's not more complicated than that. Part of it is the message, but so much of it is how you deliver it. And you can take a boring message and bring it to life. I'm telling you, when you think about stories, add them in as much as you can to make your points. Okay, I'm a big believer in trying to make a presentation actionable, and I do that, but I always add stories as examples. Hey, here's somebody that did this right or did this wrong, and here's what happened. Here's why it happened. Here was the disaster. Here was the success. People remember that. I've had people come up to me 10 years after something, and they're like, hey, I remember that story you told me about, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, wow, I remember that. That was a long time ago. So take that for what it's worth. I hope that makes you a better presenter. I'm more than happy to go into more of this stuff. This is just kind of off the top of my head, some of the things that I know contribute to a successful presentation, speech, workshop, whatever you're going to do, keynote. Doesn't matter if it's in front of 2 people or 2,000 or 5,000 or 100, whatever. This will help you captivate that audience, okay? I'm here to help, so reach out to me, okay? DM me, IM me, whatever, email me, text me, do whatever you want to do. Send a carrier pigeon. I'm here. In the meantime, like, share, subscribe. Go down below, give a 5-star review. I am always interested in your ideas for guests and topics. I do have a long list coming up from your suggestions. I greatly appreciate that. Keep them coming, and I'll see you next time. Thanks, everybody.